Tradition. Tradition is often a word that invokes positive, tried-and-true values that serve as the foundation of shaping modern success. Webster's dictionary defines tradition as an inherited, established, or customary pattern of thought, action, or behavior. Traditions can sometimes be important because they represent a critical piece of culture. They form structures and foundations of our society. They remind us that we're a part of a history that defines our past and shapes our present. It gives us identity. But, under certain contexts, tradition can also mean a refusal to drop the obsolete. One of the most obsolete traditions of the American public school system is homework. One of the most fearsome words is technology. Technology is new. It represents constant changes in an unknown future. Some may misview technology as the antithesis of tradition. Homework, however, is familiar. At its surface, it diffuses the perception of extended learning, teaching self-discipline, reminding the student that education exceeds school walls. For several generations, the old can share experiences with the young, relating the stories of nights cramming for exams, while reading under dim lights, perhaps even creating excuses of misplaced homework. Homework is so ingrained in American culture that its effectiveness is seldomly questioned, mostly because we seldom question tradition. But what if it was known that, contrary to popular belief, homework is actually not an old tradition, that its common usage is only about 6 decades old, and the idea came from a 19th century gimmick? Back in the 19th and early 20th centuries, the idea of homework was a hot-button topic among educators. In fact, it was primarily used as a financial substitution for families that couldn't put their children in school for long hours. Homework was originally defined as tasks assigned by school teachers that are meant to be carried out during non-instructional time. In other words, they were extensions of anything that time or money could not cover. Early 20th century doctors shamed homework as a leading cause of sight loss and a main factor of stress among children. Anti-homework articles were common in publications. Most of these articles by doctors urged the elimination of homework for students under 15 and a limit of 1 hour nightly for anyone older. It may seem preposterous today, but most parents in the early 20th century agreed that homework was toxic. In fact, homework was widely seen in the first half of the 20th century as harmful. The 1957 Red Scare, however, completely reversed the perception of homework. As Russia embraced an authoritarian philosophy into their education system, Americans began feeling inferior and panicked that Russian children were smarter because they worked harder. Our current view in the states of homework comes from this Cold War era. American classrooms started imitating the authoritarian nature of Soviet classrooms and invoked discipline very seriously. School itself was no longer a side dish to farm life, but instead the main course. This brought homework into the limelight of new authoritarian-based learning, which consisted of drill, memorization, and recitation. And as America completed its transformation to city life into the latter half of the 20th century, it partially attributed the new education system for its financial prosperity and victory over the Soviet Union. And although there's little evidence that American children at this time were suddenly better educated than previous generations, the idea of homework was nevertheless perceived to embody American success felt in the early 80s and 90s. The belief was, work hard, follow orders, and learning will come. This don't fix it if it's not broken philosophy carried into the early 21st century until America slammed into financial hardship. Americans were suddenly forced to re-examine its educational infrastructure, and for the past 10 years, the country has heavily invested in collecting data and research. And because of this serious research, the harsh truth about homework came to light. Homework doesn't work. In a series of research findings, psychologist Erb Twatwan revealed homework's relation to academic achievement can be measured by differentiating a student's effort, time, and frequency. Using a data set specifically tailored to homework research, Dr. Twatwan took a sample of 1,275 students from 70 classes. What resulted was that one of the categories, effort, was influencing the other two categories. By changing a student's attitude of a particular assignment, the time and frequency he or she spent on the assignment became worthwhile. When the assignment was poorly planned or uninteresting, the students' test scores were considerably lower. The assignments that students considered fun were not of the usual pen and textbook variety. Some didn't even take place at home. The assignments that students liked were often creative and evoked opinions. The students were also graded on effort and collaboration rather than being right or wrong. Another case study was done in Chicago by Dr. Robin L. Jarrett. According to her research, the average kindergarten to 8th grade students spent homework with half an hour. High school students averaged an hour and a half. Dr. Jarrett argues that given that 6 to 8 hours of a day is spent sleeping, 8 spent on school activity, an hour and a half from the remaining 8 hours of a high school student's time is very significant. This was especially impactful to lower income households where high school students have to work. Furthermore, the cumulative nature of homework means that expelled or sick students often have a difficult time catching up. Homework contributes to a lot of dropout rates. This raised the question of whether or not homework is designed to teach or designed to discipline. Given its Soviet-era authoritarian origins, it appears the latter. After Dr. Tautwan's findings, various homework data was collected from several countries based on Dr. Tautwan's measurements of effort, time, and efficiency. While countries with heavy homework did compete for the top 10, it was notable that Finland, a country that abolished homework, was successful or more successful than the countries that emphasized heavy homework loads. 93% of Finns graduate from academic or vocational high schools. That's 17 percentage points higher than the United States. 66% of the students went on to higher education, the highest rate in the entire European Union. Among the world stage, Finland's math and science was ranked among the top 10 of the world by Program for International Student Assessment, alongside Switzerland, another country whose educational system gives extensive tutoring and minimal homework. And another amazing fact, financial-wise, Finland spends 30% less per student than the United States, even though Finnish teachers work an extra hour. Moreover, Finland's students were far healthier and happier compared to their counterparts in countries like Singapore, Japan, and China, whose students often lack sleep and have high levels of depression and suicide. What's Finland's secret? Well, Finland's school policies are controlled by educators, not business people or government officials, and regardless of economic background, all Finnish schools draw from the same pool of university-trained educators. Another detail of interest is that the Finnish education system has no mandated standardized tests, rankings, or competition. Finland's education philosophy centers on making students love and respect school. The belief is that if the desire to learn comes intrinsically rather than forcefully, students will naturally strive for academic excellence. Instead of homework, Finnish students adds an extra after-school hour where students receive tutoring assistance and attention. These after-hour tutoring activities are group-oriented, designed for enjoyment and encourage creative and critical thinking. Grades are given for group work and there are minimal tests. Another interesting detail is that younger Finnish students spend on average 75 minutes in a recess, comparing to their American counterparts who average 27 minutes of recess. As a result, Finnish students intrinsically develop a lifetime of love for school. Their national graduation rate is an astounding 93%. So why can't the United States adopt Finland's program? Finland's small size and lesser historic complexity makes implementing their system into the US impossible. Not only would a top-notch education system require unrealistic heavy taxation, it would also necessitate the larger number of high-level teachers. Finnish educators need a master's degree, while the average American teacher usually only requires a bachelor's. Furthermore, Finnish citizens trust the idea of big government. Americans mistrust federal control and like for the option of individual choice. Most Americans want standardized tests, a way to judge teachers accountable, and measure merit pay. But the heart and soul of Finland's highly successful education system is about convincing students to trust in school and love education. Perhaps the United States can't afford to put a teacher in every after-school program, but America is big on automation. What one teacher is limited in handling, technology and computers can cater to a large group of students. There's no need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Software can substitute and implement the Finnish way. E-learning is a vastly growing industry in the private sector. accumulating over $51.5 billion in a year. For a while now, K-12 public education has not been fully embracing e-learning, even though statistically, privatized e-learning has been proving that blended learning consistently outperforms classroom instruction on declarative knowledge by 13% and procedural knowledge by 20%. Financially, statistics are plentiful in both the corporate and higher learning educational fields when it comes to budget costs. Ernst & Young reduced training costs by 35% while improving consistency and scalability. The University of Michigan was able to double the students served with online education, spending only 3/4 of its budget. Numbers for effective children-related e-learning apps are a bit scattered, but from the top-selling ones for kindergartners, a Georgetown University study finds that interactivity involvement increases a child's learning retention rate by 87.4%. This combination of learning efficiency and budget saving alone should be a strong reason for bureaucrats to jump into trusting software to teach children. So how would this idea work? As most know, American schools are diverse in their student and financial situations. This proposed program is especially designed to help the most underprivileged of school districts. What's minimally required are a room of computers and internet connection. The computers or laptops can be donated as long as they don't exceed 10 years. The education software can be given a discount based on the financial situation of a particular school district. At the beginning of the semester, the teacher creates the groups and serve as a central source for help and encouragement. The teacher will also assess the learner's capabilities of using the software and hardware. During class time, the teacher is to pace around the classroom while the software activities draw the student's attention. These group activities continue throughout the semester and accumulate into a large group presentation at the end. Constant exposure of key learning points ensure that the students understand and master the material in order to proceed with each activity. The main method of learning in these software group activities include the creative use of storytelling, scenario-based learning, case study, and for younger students, role-playing. For advanced students who yearn for challenges, teachers can assign special versions of the software that focus heavily on exploration and discovery. Educators will look through both formal and informal reviews of the software to receive tips, strengths, weaknesses, and adjustments. The reviews identify similar works to be done, what creative ideas from other teachers have worked, which ideas failed, and whatever needs future versions of the software can address. This can be done by all educators or one assigned educator. There will also be a brief stakeholder analysis to assess stakeholder views of keeping within budget. Teachers can use this opportunity to propose additional hardware or upgrade operating systems. Finally, there will be a program tree to overview all known causes and effects of identified issues or adjustments the classrooms made to make the after-school software program work. The companies which produce the software offers a service to customize certain activities at the request of the school. The software can either be designed by privatized companies or creative teams under employment of the government. Teachers will conduct qualitative interviews between several lessons to evaluate the students' understanding of the software and the state of the group dynamics. To prepare for the interviews, teachers will think of 4 questions which are broad enough to allow the students to answer in a variety of ways. Students will be notified a week prior to the questioning that they will be interviewed. The interviews will be recorded either through audio or video. An alternative method of this phase would be to create focus groups rather than one-on-one. Teachers can also ask students to blog or keep journals during the semester. The American public school system needs a change, and it needs forward thinking to adapt to better educational methods. America is currently ranked 25th in math, 17th in science, 14th in reading versus the world. A large part of this mediocre quality in education is due to both bureaucracy and stubbornness. Finland was once this way. Then it abolished homework, did a complete overhaul, and revolved the school system to constructivist ideas. America can do the same. Tradition should not hamper better ideas to be implemented. The resources and time spent on a failing homework system can be better used if replaced with technology. America has a strong privatized e-learning market who have already mastered creating software designed to entertain, educate, and foster love for learning. It's time to shed the Cold War era relic of homework and fully embrace after-school programs led by technology. Whatever obstacles that can occur trying this technological replacement is worth trying and tweaking. After all, America doesn't have to be Finland. It just has to be a more efficient America.